I'm really happy to have you today on this live.
Thanks. Here.
Thank you very much for doing this with me, and thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. I'm going to start with a very short introduction. So for those who don't know me yet, my name is Carol. I am the founder of Parentally, and you are on the Parentally channel. And Parentally is a platform dedicated to the well-being of parents. And what we do is we help new and future parents find all the extra care and support they may need. So information, community, and also professional support. And today we are actually having one of our professionals as a guest, Ruth Seaton. You're an IBCLC, and you're going to tell us a little bit more about that during this discussion. But you are going to share with us your insights and tips for breastfeeding and returning to work, and how to help make this transition as smooth as possible. So thank you very much for doing this with us today, and thank you everyone who's joined. Just before we get started, I have two things to say. First, this live is recorded, so if you cannot make it until the end, you can find it again on our feed. I will post it in the coming days. And the second one is I've been having a cough in the past few weeks. It's horrible. I apologize in advance if I have to cough and mute myself, but I hope I won't have to. This being said, and before we get started, Ruth, maybe would you like to tell us a bit more about who you are, what you do, and how you help parents?
Yeah,
Great.
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm really
My pleasure.
glad just to have a conversation and just to share about a big transition in breastfeeding for moms who are going back to work. So as an introduction, I'm Ruth Seaton. I started Mama Ruth Lactation Consulting a year ago to meet the need for English-speaking lactation care in the Amsterdam area. So my training and background was in nursing in the US. I went to nursing school and worked as a nurse in the newborn ICU for a number of years, and did some training as a degree in education as well. I did a lot of staff development, teaching of patients and of nursing staff. And then, moved to Amsterdam, and I'm glad to be helping moms now. And my goal is just to come alongside families in feeding their babies and find the best ways to use these tools to work for their goals. So if exclusive breastfeeding is not your goal, that's okay. I just want to help make breastfeeding the smoothest piece of that equation. So personally, I have two little boys myself. They are 18 months and just turned 4. So it's his first week at Bossa School.
Oh, amazing. Congratulations. That's exciting.
So it's been a big week here, but he's enjoying it. So
nice.
Yeah.
And I have a question actually, because I mentioned you are an IBCLC. Could you please explain what it is, exactly what it means?
Yeah, certainly. So it stands for International Board Certified Lactation Consultant. There's a few different lactation trainings that people can do. And the IBCLC is seen as sort of the top standard for lactation training that a provider can have. So it is, since I already had a background in nursing, I did not have to take additional like university level courses for mine, because I had already done that with nursing. And so I did have to have at least 1,000 hours of clinical work with breastfeeding mothers. And then in addition to that, did 95 hours of lactation specific education courses, and then sat for an exam as well. So it is a fairly rigorous kind of training program, but it really is it's a good standard of qualification. It's also that, and a few other requirements allow you to be reimbursed, for my clients to be reimbursed by insurance as well. So I can't speak for every single insurance provider, but generally, as best I know, I meet all the criteria for being reimbursed by insurance.
That's very interesting.
If you have like
and just
coverage.
Actually, just another, I want to just again on what you just said in terms of insurance coverage. Lactation consultants, are they usually part of the basic coverage or additional packages?
Like I said, I've not dived into all different insurance providers and things. I bill privately, and then clients talk with their insurance about reimbursement. But my understanding is it's typically not covered with basic plans, but typically it is covered with any of the levels of additional plan. But it would say specifically in your coverage if there's lactation support.
That's a good thing to check. That's a good thing to check in the insurance coverage.
Yeah, and for expecting moms who, not this time of year, but if you're expecting a baby and you're going to be delivering in the following year, you can change your insurance plan to provide that coverage for once you have your baby.
True, absolutely true. And we actually did a post about that, so I invite everyone to have a look if they want more information. But I'm very happy to have you on this live today to share about your expertise and to share some insights actually about this, like you said, very big transition. And I think for every mother, returning to work after taking a leave is quite a big thing, and can trigger some apprehension, and even more apprehension when you are breastfeeding and you don't really know how it's gonna work. So I think my first question is that if you are returning to work and plan on continuing breastfeeding, is this something you can prepare for or prepare in advance?
Yeah, I think that's really my biggest advice, is to prepare far ahead, as early as possible, even while you're still pregnant. If you are going to be returning to work at the same place, planning to, then go ahead and talk with your employer about availability for pumping. And we can talk a little bit later on about kind of the rules and policies in place that allow for that. But go ahead and see what kind of space is available. Is there a refrigerator, or do you need to bring something to keep your milk cool? Different offices will have kind of different setups, but the more you do to prepare, the better it can be, because you'll also be, your child will be going in some kind of childcare when you're going back to work, and that's also new. You will be turning your brain back on for non-child caretaking duties, and that's another thing to think about. So the more you can prepare for the pumping aspect of that as early as you can, the better.
And as early, like when?
Yeah, it's never too early to start thinking about it and making a plan. I do think I recommend starting pumping and bottles. If you don't need to before then start around like 12 weeks. So between 2 and 4 months.
I see. Yes.
To begin pumping and giving bottles. Again, if you're not needing to for any other reason, just do 1 or 2 per week, just to keep you familiar with the pumping system and your baby familiar with taking a bottle, so that hopefully once you are transitioning to childcare and work, that's a smoother. Pumping is not new for you, and bottle feeding is not new for baby at that point.
I see. And actually, that's a big topic, the transition to bottle. I think we all had the fear of this not working. What are your tips regarding the transition to bottle feeding, actually?
Yeah, I think first for breastfeeding, the first 2 months, especially, really 3 months, is really important in establishing your breastfeeding relationship. So if you're not going back to work before 3 months, which I think most moms here are able to stay off that long, I would say don't start pumping in bottles until then. But once you do, just keep it very low pressure. So establish that breastfeeding relationship first. Feeding is going well, your milk supply is good, and then after that, then you can look at introducing a bottle. I recommend a nipple that looks more like the breast should look in the mouth. So baby breastfeeds, they actually open up their mouth wide, and they take a lot of breast tissue and they suck it to really fill their whole mouth. So if you look at most bottle nipples, where it's like a wide base and then it goes very quickly to a point, that's not at all what your breast looks like in their mouth. So something like the Lanzano Natural Wave is the best kind of nipple that I've seen. A lot of babies will take any, and it's not any problem. But if you're having any trouble, if breastfeeding is going well and bottles are hard, that's a good one to try.
Great. I will actually share this reference in the feed because I think it's really
Yeah.
interesting. And you were talking about actually milk supply. Honestly, when I started working again and I wanted to continue breastfeeding, it's actually one of the biggest concern, like how am I going to be able to maintain the milk supply? How does it work actually? What are the things that we should pay attention to, and how often should we pump? You know, all these kind of questions. I mean, it's quite
Yeah. There's a lot to think
complicated.
about with
Yeah.
it. I think the best thing is if you can establish good milk production
Mm-hmm.
beginning before you're needing to pump and return to work. That's really helpful. And then essentially you'll pump for every feeding that your baby, every bottle that your
See.
baby gets, you should be pumping
Yes.
that time.
Okay.
Some moms that have a really great supply, they can pump a little bit longer, 2 times when their baby gets 3 bottles or something like that. But generally, you should be pumping each bottle that your baby is missing or that your baby is getting while you're away.
Okay.
And then for your milk production as well, it can be really difficult. Your baby generally is better at getting good milk out than your pump is. And so that can be a challenge. Another tip is to breastfeed as much as you can when
Yes.
you're not at work.
Yes.
So continue breastfeeding mornings and nights, depending on your work commute and schedules and things. Think of, would it be possible to take your child to daycare or starter or nanny or wherever and breastfeed there just before
Okay.
you leave.
Oh, that's great
And then
advice.
as
Yeah.
soon as you arrive, breastfeed. And then, that may end up meaning that your baby's getting 2 bottles and you're pumping twice at work instead of 4 times when you're away. So
Okay.
things like that. Weekends, breastfeed as much as you can. Yeah, just anytime you can breastfeed, do that and try to limit the pumping to just when it's necessary
I see.
when you're away.
And when it comes to pumping, actually, when do you know, like, how long should you pump? When do you know to stop? Or is it really like pumping like a feeding or pumping to relieve, to release, I don't know how to say the word, but to relieve the breast?
Yeah. It's kind of doing both. One, you're getting milk out that you can then feed your baby, which is great. The other thing is that it's telling your body, keep making milk. We're
Okay.
not done with it. So even if you say go on a work, if you travel for work or for fun and you're away from your baby, even if you choose not to, or are not able to bring that milk back with you, continue pumping. Even if you pour it all out, your milk is still, if you were to not pump for 3 days while you're traveling
Yes,
and away from your baby, your body's going to say, oh, we're done. We're not going to make
I
any
see.
more. So then when you come back, there's not as much milk for your
I
baby. So you're doing
see.
2 things. You're getting milk and you're also stimulating your body to continue making. Another thing that's really helpful for your milk production and that you can do in the early months to prepare is to bond with your pump, which sounds really funny, but when you breastfeed your baby, your body releases lots of oxytocin, and they call that love hormone. And so you just feel all mushy. And even if you don't feel so bonded with your baby when you're breastfeeding, if that's not especially your thing, it's still, your body's still producing this oxytocin, and it's still a release that helps with your milk production. And so your pump is not giving you lovey things. It doesn't smell
No,
like a baby. It doesn't make
no.
you feel great. So if you can practice, just when you begin pumping, make it something that you look forward to. So say there's a favorite TV show and you say, okay, I'm only going to watch this when I'm pumping, or things like that you can do just to where you're feeling at least you're not feeling stress and animosity towards your pump, because those are going to be difficult for having good production. And then also, if you want to look at pictures of your baby, especially as a newborn,
Yeah.
so just looking at those pictures again just releases that oxytocin, or videos of your baby. Anything you can do to relax, close your eyes and listen to some music that really relaxes you. Or if you want to bring like a blanket that your baby has slept with in the bed and it smells like your baby, and just kind of put that up near your face to smell while you're pumping. Those are all things that can help you just to kind of almost trick your body into feeling like it's more breastfeeding than pumping.
That's great tips and also
Yeah.
very sweet.
Yeah. One other thing with the production too, that I know the wearable pumps are really popular
Yeah.
now, the ones where the whole pump sits inside your bra, and so you don't have to also be connected to like extra tubing and things like that. It's in your shirt. Those are great for good production. If you're having trouble with the amount of milk that you're making, I would switch to a non-wearable pump, because then you'll be able to massage your breasts during the pumping, because that can be really helpful with getting more milk out. So the wearables are great if you're not having issues with that, but if it's a challenge, I would switch to something where you can you have room to massage your breast during the pump.
Yes, actually, it was kind of my next question in terms of equipment, I would say. The choice of the pump, and especially if you are going to pump at work, would you have any type of recommendation? The pump, but also the material that you would need at for storage at work. What would mothers need to prepare?
Yeah.
To have?
So getting a good breast pump, certainly. A lot of people sell secondhand pumps, and the motors are actually not made to last very long.
Oh, okay.
So they're kind of just made to last for one baby.
Oh, really? Okay.
18 months or so. It depends on how much you pump. So if you have a friend who only pumped a few times and she wants to give you her pump, that might be fine. But if you pump full time for 18 months, your pump's pretty done. So if you're using a pump like that secondhand, you're not going to get very good suction. So I really do recommend getting a new pump. And then as far as what type, there's a lot of great brands out there. Medela, Lanzano, Philips all have good ones. The LV is a wearable one. That's a good one too. There's a new one called Nudies that I've not talked to anybody who's used, but it seems like good things. Those are all good. I think the main thing is just to think about your own needs. For that, if you have a long commute and you're going to be pumping in the car to and from, and that's 5 days a week, a wearable is probably a really good idea for you.
Yeah.
If you're working 2 days a week or partial days and you're going to be pumping less, it's probably not worth the cost, because the wearables usually run like 250 to 300 euros. And the non-wearable ones are a bit cheaper. So I think that's just to consider what you need for that. And then as far as other equipment, I like to keep it really simple. And there's plenty of products that can be added and kind of maybe complicate things. If you want to use those and they're working for you, great. But I like to just stay kind of simple with really all you need is a hands-free pumping bra or a regular nursing bra if you're going to be using the wearables, and then your bottles that it'll pump into. And then you can either, depending on how much milk and how long you're storing it, you can just store it in those bottles, or you can bring storage bags to seal it in. And then just any kind of cooler and an ice pack. If you have a refrigerator at work that you can use during the day, use that. And then for getting to and from work and home, just a cooler with an ice pack.
I see. Yes.
Yeah.
And in terms of actually pumping at work, and we mentioned this at the beginning, are there any, how to say this, rules or kind of, maybe not legislations, but when it comes to pumping at work, is there something you have to ask for in advance, or
I don't know. There is actually legislation about it. You do need to talk to your employer in advance, though. If you return to work and say, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to pump now,"
yes,
they may not have capacity to allow that at that point. But if you tell them in advance, then they are required to make allowances for that. And you can have during your paid time up to 1/4 of your time, your work time, to use for pumping. So if you work an 8-hour day, 2 hours, up to 2 hours that you can dedicate to pumping, that's still your continuous paid time that you're working.
That's really great to know.
Yeah. And then the other thing they are required to provide is a space that's clean and private and can lock from the inside. So that way you have privacy. You're not worried about someone popping in. And that space it needs to be a space that's not a toilet as well. So if they can't provide that, then your employer needs to provide ability for you to pump and feed from home.
Okay.
So whether that's working from home or extra time to go back and forth from home, which most employers at that point are able to find you.
Yes.
they make a space for you at the
Yes.
office at that point. So.
And let's be clear, that's for every company, no matter of the size.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really great
Yeah.
to know. That's really important to know, especially for women who kind of fear going back to work and fear the stigma of having to pump and everything.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's really important to know, I think.
Right. That's through the first
yes.
9 months. So it's from
okay.
birth that they're required to provide those things. And I think most employers continue that. If you're continuing to pump after the 9 months, I think most places will work with you on that. But the legislation actually is up to 9 months.
Okay. Great to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then my next question is actually about returning to work and willing to stop with breastfeeding. What would be your advice on this, on how to make the transition from breastfeeding to exclusive bottle feeding?
So I think one piece is just any breastfeeding that you do is great for you and great for you. So if you breastfed for 1 month, 1 week, 3 months, be very proud of that and just know that that's a great thing that you did and that your baby was able to get breast milk for that time. So it's not worth it or anything like that. Any breast milk is great for you and for baby. So that's one thing. And the other, I would say, think about what are the reasons that you don't want to, and would some breastfeeding still fit into that? So if you're going back at 6 months and you don't want to pump, you could still breastfeed your baby at bedtime and in the morning, and then they get bottles during the day, if that's something you want to do. So just know it doesn't have to be all or nothing. So if you're just like, pumping at work is not going to work for me, that's okay. You don't have to, but you could still breastfeed some if you're wanting to. And if you're like, this is it, I'm done now, that's also great too. So just start with that. Start a good bit before, because you don't want to, it's difficult for your body if you're dropping more than one feeding every 3 days. So say you're going back to work and your baby's at that time breastfeeding 6 times a day. Then if you just all of a sudden stop, you'll be in a lot of pain.
Yes.
So just take however many feedings it is and expect 2 to 3 days, really 3 is best, to drop one feeding every 3 days and to back off of that slowly, so that your body still thinks it's making this full supply of milk. So
yes,
it
makes sense.
that. If you do feel engorged during those times when you skip that feeding, then just pump just to relieve, or let the baby breastfeed just to relieve the pressure. Give a whole feeding or pump a whole feeding, your body says, oh, we're still making milk. So for that weaning time, you want to relieve the pressure if you need to, but not continue past that amount.
I see. I actually have a practical question. Like, if you want to continue breastfeeding in the morning and only in the evening, but not during the day, how is your body going to react? Like, will your body just, stop producing milk during the day and then will still have milk available in the evening? Or
yes. So your breasts actually produce most of the milk during eating. So there's some that's stored in the breast, and that's what comes out first. But as your baby starts sucking or you start pumping, that's what stimulates your body to make milk. So most of the milk making is done during a feeding, not before.
I see.
So if you were to measure the amount of milk that your baby's getting during morning and night feeds when you're not breastfeeding or pumping during the day, it would probably be less than a full feeding. But they can make that up in other bottles. And depending on how old they are, if they're also eating some solid foods and things like that, then they'll make up for it somewhere else. But if breastfeeding has been a special bonding thing for you, but pumping at work is not worth it, then it's still one option there. So I would say at that point, if you're just breastfeeding morning and night and that's all, it would be more of a
Yes.
bonding connection piece than a fully nutritional piece. But again, any breast milk is good. It all has these immunity properties
Yes.
and things like that. So
Yes. And in terms of introducing formula, like if you are
Mhm.
breastfeeding and then you decide to stop breastfeeding and then completely transitioning to formula
Mhm.
feeding, is there any specific precautions to take or preparation
Yeah, most
in
babies
advance?
should do fine
Yes.
with transitioning to it. If they're not wanting to drink it or having a lot of
Mm-hmm.
spit up, to try mixing. So say 70% breast milk in bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And what did I say? 70
Yes.
and 30% formula, to mix that and then gradually make it more and more formula
Mm-hmm.
to transition over like that if you have a little picky eater. But most babies, yeah. And I always say just start with the basic formula. And if
Yes.
they're having trouble with
Okay.
reflux and things like that, or lactose intolerance and something like that, those are not super common. And so start with the basic. And then if you need to switch to something else, you can.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
great advice. And that's kind of reassuring, actually,
Yeah.
for mothers. Actually, my last question was about the emotional aspects of, going back to work and leaving your baby at home and not being able to breastfeed. Would you have any advice for mothers to help them make this transition as smooth as possible?
Yeah, yeah. I think, I read somewhere one time that it's really good for your family to
Mm-hmm.
see mom pursuing passions and gifts and things that she is good at and interested in.
Very true.
And that it's really good. Your 4, 5, 6 month old is not going to be seeing that exactly, but it's a part of your family functioning that
Mm-hmm.
you're setting already, that's good for them to see. Mom has things that she's good at that are outside of our home that
Mm-hmm.
she's going to do. And whether that's stay-at-home moms who are volunteering or serving in different areas in the city, or part-time work, or full, whatever
Mm-hmm.
it is, for your children to grow up seeing that is also a gift. So don't feel, I know we can feel really guilty for leaving our home and doing other things, but I think it can be, and you can see it also as a gift for your
Mm-hmm.
family to see it that way. So I think that's one thing. And then, yeah, put together like a photo album of baby pictures that you can look through while you're pumping, because that's, yeah, helps with that emotional bridge there, but it also will help with your pumping.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're not pumping, take a break during the day and just take some time to kind of connect on that. Or you can also look for different routines that you could put in place, like a song you sing when you drop off at
Mm-hmm.
childcare, or just different ways that you can connect with your child. And I think just be patient, because it will become routine and
Mm-hmm.
it'll get easier. But the first little while can be a challenge for
Yes,
sure.
for sure. There's that, and then the dropping at daycare, and
Yeah.
this is really,
Yeah.
it's really
And if
hard.
you can start any of that before, if you can start childcare a week or
Mm-hmm.
before you go back to work, that can be nice.
Mm-hmm.
That way it can be shorter days, but also you can just emotionally adjust
Yes,
as well, and have to go from a difficult drop off first day straight to
yes, true,
needing to focus on work.
true. That's very true. That's a great
Yeah.
advice. Well, thank you so much, Ruth, for all these tips, all these insights, and maybe we still have a bit more time, so maybe we can
Yeah.
take some questions.
Yeah.
If anyone has questions, please feel free to ask them in the
Okay.
comments.
While we're waiting, one other tip that I had is
Yes.
to choose a bag, especially if you have one that can zip. So if you have older children, or as your child gets bigger, they don't unzip it and take things out. But just to have a bag that you dedicate to, that's your take to work pumping bag.
Okay.
You get home, you sterilize your pumping parts, and they go straight back in the bag.
Mm-hmm.
That way, when you're getting out of the house in the morning, baby's crying, you're headed to daycare and then to work and all of this, you can just grab the bag
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have to think, do I have a bottled water in there? Do I have
Yes.
my pumping bra? It's just all stays in there. And if you're pumping like full time at work, it's probably worthwhile to invest in like a second pumping bra, if you're going to be doing that at home and at
Mm-hmm.
work, um, to have things that can just stay in that bag.
Mm-hmm. That's a great tip. And you mentioned a bottle of water. That's
Yes,
great because then you have it at hand
yes, water
and you don't have
and
to.
snacks.
Yes,
Nuts
absolutely. Water and
are
snack.
really good
Yes.
pumping snacks. Yeah, they're high protein, high fat, that are great, and
That's
they're they're not messy. There's plenty of other ones too, hard-boiled eggs and things like that, but those are harder to those are harder
hard
to have in your pumping bag. So I feel like nuts are
hard-boiled
always
eggs. I didn't know
easy.
that. I never
Yeah, or
heard that.
any kind of eggs really, but yeah,
We got
yeah.
we got a comment from Leah Rivia. She said, "My milk stopped for 4 days when I have too
Mm,
much stress because of work. So reducing the stress is really important for me." And that's very true.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
very true. Oh, we don't have any
Okay.
questions, but my last question
Yeah.
for you, Ruth, actually, to wrap it up, is like if you had one golden
Mm,
advice for mothers who are transitioning to returning to work and breastfeeding, what would be your this golden nugget?
yeah, I think just
Yeah.
preparing whatever, just think as early as you can, what will this be like? And just think through all of the steps of, I need a space, I need these
Mm-hmm.
supplies. Oh, I'm going to be thirsty and hungry. I should have snacks and water. Oh, then I need somewhere to store my milk while I'm still at work
Mm-hmm.
for the day. Is there a refrigerator I can use? Do I need to bring extra ice packs to keep a cooler
Mm-hmm.
cold enough? Just the more you can think through the whole start to finish process of that, I think the more it'll just really set you up for success. If you know of anyone else at your workplace who's pumped recently or still is, they're a good resource to
Mm-hmm.
talk to about what did you need when you were in the space? Was there anything else? Um, yeah, so that's a great resource. If not, there's plenty of online forums for pumping moms,
Yes.
working moms, and those are great for just asking your questions or reading other people's questions to get help on that as well. But yeah, start thinking about it as early as
Mm-hmm.
possible and prepare for what your unique situation is going to be.
Mm-hmm. That's great
Yeah,
advice. Thank you so much.
yeah,
And to finish this live, would love to talk about how you support mothers in their breastfeeding journey because you have different types of support that you offer to parents. Would you like to tell us a
yeah.
bit more about that? Yes.
So I really any portion of your
Mm-hmm.
breastfeeding, but I love to do prenatal
Mm-hmm.
consults as well. So I can come and meet you at your home and we'll talk a little bit before I come just about what your specific questions are, maybe what your goals and experience with breastfeeding is. Some
Mm-hmm.
people are pretty familiar with it but have never done it themselves, and
Yes.
others say no one I know has ever breastfed, but I think I want to. And
Yeah.
any of that is great. So I just like to, yeah, just come and kind of explain the process of how it works and what
Mm-hmm.
to expect from those first few weeks. I think the prenatal consults are super, super helpful because you just, there's just, especially the way that we live culturally these days, if we're not in and out of each other's homes all the time, seeing other women, multi-generational
That's true.
and all of that, where
Mm-hmm.
you may or may not have really seen what breastfeeding is like firsthand.
That's very true.
And so I think knowing, yeah, the more you can know beforehand is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Then I to do lactation consults at any stage of
Mm-hmm.
lactation. So I would say the majority of the consults that I do are in the first 6 weeks, a lot in the first week or so. So that initial latching, making sure, is baby getting any milk? Is my milk coming in? Those kind of things I can help with. But then also if you're saying, okay, milk is there, baby's feeding, but it's every 2 hours around the clock and my baby's older now. How do I slow it down, make it more full feeds and drop one or those kind of things I can help with as well. I do bottle refusal
Mm-hmm.
consults. So you're not taking bottles, help with that. And then I also do love to do return to work
Mm-hmm.
consults as well. So if breastfeeding's been going well, but you're coming up to this transition of now we're going to be apart
Mm-hmm.
for some period of time, to just come and again, just talk through your specific situation and what the plan is for that. Um, and then pumping as well, I can help with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so any of that. One other consult that I never know what the right word is. I don't enjoy doing it, but it's an honor to be able to help. Is mom, your milk supply is ready to feed a baby by about 23 or 24 weeks. And
Mm-hmm.
so have a pregnancy loss after that time, or just the loss of a breastfeeding infant, then your milk is still going to be made and as if you want the baby to drink it, and that's a really difficult thing to do. So there's a few different options for how to handle that. But it was when I worked in the NICU as a nurse, one of the greatest privileges was being with families at the end of life for their baby, and just to provide some knowledge and not personal experience, but working experience of how to navigate that. And so I'm honored to be able to help if there's
and
a breastfeeding question for that.
yes, of course. And I think that's something we don't talk about enough. And I'm sure a lot of women are not even aware of the whole process and the support they can get to go through that. So that's really nice that you share about this and that you also offer this service. But thank you so much for sharing everything with us today. And of course, you can find more information about Mama Ruth lactation consulting on Parentally, and I will put all the information also on the feed when I share the video again. But thank you so much, Ruth, for doing this live with me. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and thank you everyone for joining this live, and don't forget to follow parentally.nl, and I will see you again soon for a new live. Ruth, would you like to say something else before we end?
Thank you everyone for tuning in, and just really enjoyed sharing this, and I'm glad that it's will be still on your page and able for people to find and get some information. So
that's great. Thank you everyone, and I wish you all a very nice weekend. Bye, Ruth.
Great. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.